My wife secretly bankrupted our estate by embezzling over $300, $0 to fund her affair with her boss, and now she's claiming I owe her half of the property, even though I just found out she forged my signature on legal documents. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing this kind of story, but life has a way of throwing punches when you least expect it. Honestly, if someone told me a year ago that I'd find out my wife, Emily, was cheating on me and secretly bankrupted our entire estate, I'd have laughed in their face. But here I am. The thing is, the signs were subtle at first, little things that didn't add up. She started working late more often, claiming it was just business stress, but her phone would ring at odd hours, and she'd quickly hide it when I came close. She'd be distracted, tense, and suddenly defensive if I asked about her whereabouts or her phone. Looking back, I realized I was blind. I wanted to believe in us and the life we built. We had a nice house, good jobs, 2 kids who adored her, but she changed. The way she looked at me became colder, more dismissive. She'd brush off my concerns, say I was paranoid, or accuse me of not trusting her. Still, I didn't want to see the truth, not really. That is, until I stumbled across the evidence that shattered everything. It started with a message on her phone from someone named Bossman. Just a simple "can't wait to see you tonight," sent around 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was passing through the living room and saw it open on her screen. Heart pounding, I froze, my stomach sank. I knew instantly that this wasn't just a work-related chat. I looked closer. The tone was intimate, flirtatious even. My mind raced. I remembered the late nights she'd been claiming were work meetings, but this was something else. And then there were the financial discrepancies. I'd always been the one handling the money, balancing the accounts, making sure everything was in order, but I'd recently noticed withdrawals from our joint account, large sums that I hadn't authorized or even knew about. When I questioned her, she brushed it off, called me paranoid, accused me of mistrusting her again. She told me I was overreacting, that I had no proof, but I knew better. Something was very wrong. I started digging deeper. I pulled up bank statements, cross-referenced them with our legal documents. That's when I found it. Forged signatures, documents buried deep in the paperwork, transferring huge chunks of money out of our estate. Over $300, $0 gone. I couldn't believe it. She embezzled it to fund her affair, I was sure of it. And the worst part, she was now claiming I owed her half of everything, even though she'd secretly bankrupted us. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. I felt numb at first, disbelief, then rage. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly, manipulate everything, and then turn around and demand her share? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All I wanted was to confront her, get some answers, and understand how she could be so ruthless. But I knew this was just the beginning. The real storm was coming. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I had the evidence, screenshots of her messages, bank statements, forged signatures. I sat her down in the living room one evening, my hands trembling slightly, trying to keep my voice steady. She was bitchy as ever, rolling her eyes like I was just bothering her with some petty nonsense. "So, what's this I hear about you cheating on me with your boss, Emily?" I asked flatly, sliding the phone across the coffee table so she could see the messages. Her face instantly hardened and she scoffed. "Seriously, that's just rumors, you're paranoid, you always think the worst," she said, crossing her arms. Her voice was dismissive, but I could see the flicker of annoyance in her eyes. She was trying to brush it off like it was nothing, but I pressed on. "Then explain these," I said, holding up the bank statements. "Over $300, $0 gone. You forged my signature on legal documents to transfer our money into your account. How do you explain that?" Her face paled for a split second, then she scoffed again. "Oh, come on, you're overreacting. It's just some business stuff. You don't need to know everything. You're just jealous, insecure, whatever." I could feel my blood boiling. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she pretend it was all just some mistake or misunderstanding? I told her I knew about the affair, about the embezzlement, about everything. Her eyes flashed with anger and contempt. "You're crazy," she spat. "You're accusing me of all this without proof. You're just trying to control me. I don't owe you anything anymore." Her voice was venomous. She then added with that bitchy smirk, "In fact, I think I should get half of everything. You've been so controlling, I deserve my share." That was the moment I realized how deep her lies went. She was trying to turn things around, make herself the victim, and claim half our estate after what she'd done. I felt a surge of rage and heartbreak. I'd loved her, trusted her, and now I saw her for what she really was: selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything we built for her own pleasure and greed. I sat there, stunned, trying to process what she was saying. I thought about the years we spent building our life, her bitchy attitude, her lies, her constant dismissiveness, and now this. How she could be so cold, so calculating. I knew I had to do something, but I also knew this wasn't just about money or her cheating. It was about betrayal on a scale I'd never imagined. Her reaction only confirmed what I suspected. She was planning to keep everything, even if it meant tearing our lives apart. And I was left standing there, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. I'd never felt so humiliated, so betrayed in my entire life. But I also knew I wouldn't let her get away with it. Not without a fight. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept circling around her lies, the money she stole, the affair she was having with her boss, and how she was trying to manipulate me into giving her half of what was left. I knew I had to act fast. The first step was to get legal advice, to understand what rights I had and what I could do to protect what was left of our estate. I found a lawyer, someone who specialized in financial crimes and divorces, and explained everything. She listened carefully, then looked through the documents I had collected. Her face grew serious as she examined the forged signatures, the bank withdrawals, the evidence of her affair. She told me I had a strong case for both criminal charges and divorce, but also warned me about the complications of her claiming I owed her half of everything, especially since she'd already embezzled so much. Meanwhile, Emily was still acting bitchy, trying to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. She kept insisting that I was the one cheating, that I was paranoid, insecure, and jealous. She threw tantrums about not being appreciated and being the only one working hard, even though I knew she was secretly funneling money to her lover and lying about her whereabouts. She had this way of twisting everything, making herself the victim, and trying to make me look like the bad guy. One night she stormed into the bedroom, demanding to know why I was accusing her of stuff she didn't do. She yelled that I was trying to control her, that I was jealous of her success, and that I was just insecure. I'd had enough. I told her I knew about her affair, about the embezzlement, and that I was done listening to her lies. I told her she was a manipulative, selfish bitch who had destroyed everything we built. Her face twisted in anger, and she spat back that I was just a jealous, insecure man who couldn't handle a woman who was smarter and more successful than me. In that moment, I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. I could see her true face, the bitchy, lying, manipulative side that she'd hidden behind her pretty smile all these years. I knew I had to protect myself and my kids. I decided to take control, to fight back legally, and to make sure she couldn't ruin us anymore. The betrayal was staggering, but I was determined to get justice, even if it meant tearing everything apart first. The next step was to freeze our joint accounts, start the divorce proceedings, and investigate exactly how much she had taken and how deep her lies went. I also hired a private investigator to follow her around, just to confirm her affair. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became. She was so good at lying, so good at pretending everything was fine, but behind the scenes she was doing everything she could to destroy us and manipulate her way out of it. I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me: anger, sadness, betrayal, and I wondered how I'd ever trust again. But I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without a fight. I'd rather lose everything than let her walk over me like she thought she could. I had to protect my kids, my name, and whatever was left of my dignity. This was just the beginning of a long, ugly battle, and I was ready to face it head on. The legal battle kicked into high gear faster than I expected. My lawyer worked tirelessly, digging into her financial records, uncovering more forged signatures, and tracing the money she'd siphoned away. It wasn't just about the $300, $0 she stole. It was about the trust she shattered, the lies she told, and the way she manipulated everything to her advantage. I knew she was trying to spin it all, claiming I was the bad guy, but the evidence was overwhelming. While the legal process was unfolding, Emily kept up her bitchy act. She'd show up at the house, throwing tantrums about losing her rights, insisting she was entitled to half the property because she'd worked hard for it. She'd scream that I was trying to cheat her out of her fair share, even though she was the one who embezzled, lied, and cheated. She accused me of betraying her love and called me insecure whenever I questioned her. But I wasn't about to let her manipulate her way out of this. I had proof of the forged signatures and the bank withdrawals. I had the private investigators' reports confirming her affair. I had everything I needed to fight her in court and protect what was rightfully mine. It was clear she was trying to turn the tables, but I refused to be the victim in her twisted game. One of the most shocking moments came when I discovered she'd been secretly working with her boss, Michael, to drain our accounts. They'd been meeting up, planning their escape, and she'd even forged documents to transfer assets into his name. I found emails between them, explicit conversations about their secret life, and even pictures of her with him. The betrayal cut so deep I felt physically sick. She lied about everything, her love, her fidelity, her loyalty, and now I knew she'd been planning her escape for months. I confronted her again, this time with all the evidence laid out. Her bitchy attitude didn't change. If anything, it grew more venomous. She told me I was jealous, that I didn't understand her ambition, and that she deserved to be happy. She claimed I was holding her back, that she needed freedom, and that I was just a controlling asshole. I looked at her and realized I didn't even recognize the woman she'd become. She was a master manipulator, and I'd been a fool to trust her. The emotional toll was brutal. I went from feeling numb to furious, then to utterly heartbroken. I'd loved her once, believed in us, and now I was questioning everything I thought I knew. How could she be so selfish? How could she destroy our family for some affair and a quick buck? I'd never felt so betrayed, so humiliated in my entire life. But I also knew I had to stay strong for myself and for my kids. I couldn't let her win, not after everything. As the legal proceedings moved forward, I started preparing for the worst. I knew she'd try to fight dirty, to claim half of everything even though she was the one who'd betrayed us. I bought a new house, set up a trust for my children, and began the process of rebuilding. It's hard to describe the mix of emotions: anger, sadness, frustration, but also a strange sense of relief. I was finally taking control of my life again, even if it was messy and painful. In the end, I realized I couldn't fix what she'd broken, but I could make sure she paid for her lies and her betrayal. I learned that some people are capable of doing anything for money, even destroying their own family. And I learned that you can't trust someone blindly. You have to watch their actions, not just their words. This whole ordeal has taught me a hard lesson about honesty, loyalty, and the true cost of betrayal. And I'll never let anyone do that to me again. The court hearings were a whirlwind. Emily showed up, bitchy as ever, trying to manipulate the situation with her typical snide remarks and fake tears. She insisted she was the real victim, crying about how I was trying to steal her rights, how she deserved half, and how she'd sacrificed everything for this family. It was almost laughable, if it weren't so infuriating. The judge saw through her lies, especially once my lawyer presented the irrefutable evidence of the forged signatures and the embezzlement. During the hearings, I felt a mix of relief and bitterness. Relief because I finally had the truth on my side, and bitterness because I knew this was only the beginning of her attempts to manipulate and drag things out. She kept trying to spin her narrative, claiming she'd only done what she did out of desperation, that she was forced into it, and that her affair was just a mistake. She smeared her boss, Michael, as if he was some innocent pawn in her game, but I knew better. I had the emails, the pictures, everything. The judge finally made a ruling that stunned her. She wouldn't get half of the estate, especially since she'd already embezzled a significant portion of it. Instead, she was ordered to repay every dollar she stole plus legal fees. That was a huge blow to her ego, but I knew it wasn't over. She'd probably try to appeal or find some other way to drag things out. What hurt the most was seeing her face after the verdict. That bitchy smirk was replaced by a cold, angry glare. She didn't even bother to hide her fury. Instead, she spat out that she'd fight this all the way, that she'd ruin me if she had to, and that she'd get her revenge. I could see the venom in her eyes, and honestly, I felt a shiver down my spine. I knew she was capable of anything at this point. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my life. I moved into the new house I'd bought, started working even more hours to make up for the financial mess she'd left behind, and tried to focus on my kids. They didn't fully understand what was happening, but I made sure they knew their dad loved them and was doing everything to keep us safe. It was a brutal period, full of late nights, legal battles, and emotional exhaustion, but I refused to let her win completely. One day, I found myself sitting alone in my new home, reflecting on everything that had happened. The anger was still there, anger at her betrayal, her lies, her greed, but so was a strange sense of relief. I'd survived. I'd fought her off, and I'd come out stronger. I realized how much I'd let her manipulate me for years, how I'd been blind to her true nature. But now I was awake. I was cautious, but I was also finally free. I learned that some people are capable of doing unimaginable things when money and their selfish desires are involved. I learned that trust is fragile, and you have to be careful about who you let into your life. And most importantly, I learned that you can't fix what's broken if the other person refuses to admit they're wrong. Sometimes, the only way to protect yourself is to cut loose, fight for what's right, and move on. That's what I intend to do. No more lies, no more betrayal, no more bitchy manipulations. Just me, my kids, and a new beginning. Looking back, I never thought I'd be the guy who had to fight his own wife in court, lose countless nights of sleep, and face the bitter reality of betrayal on such a grand scale. But I did it. I fought for my family, my sanity, and my integrity. The whole ordeal taught me more about human greed, manipulation, and deception than I ever wanted to know. It also taught me the importance of being vigilant, of not trusting blindly, and of standing up for myself when it mattered most. Emily's bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations, they all came crashing down in the end. She's still trying to spin her version of events, still trying to hold on to whatever she can, but the truth is out there now. She's been exposed for who she really is. A selfish, greedy, manipulative woman who was willing to destroy her own family for her own pleasure and profit. As for me, I've come out of this battered but stronger. I've learned that I'm capable of surviving the worst kind of betrayal, that I can rebuild from ashes, and that sometimes the only way forward is to cut your losses and start fresh. I've also realized that no matter how much someone manipulates or lies, the truth always finds a way to surface. It's just a matter of holding on until it does. To anyone reading this, especially those going through similar heartbreak and betrayal, I'd say this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags, no matter how much you want to believe in the good. When someone shows you who they truly are, whether through lies, greed, or betrayal, believe them. Protect yourself, fight for what's right, and never let anyone take away your sense of self-worth. Love is built on honesty and respect, and if those aren't present, it's better to walk away than to stay and be dragged into the chaos. I'm not perfect and I still have scars, but I'm moving forward one step at a time. I've learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes from facing the brutal truth and choosing to rise above it. My life may never be the same, but I'll make damn sure it's better, without her lies, her bitchy attitude, or her greed. I owe that to myself, and to my kids who deserve stability and love. This was a nightmare I survived, and I hope my story serves as a warning. Never underestimate the damage a selfish, manipulative person can do when they think they can get away with it. Because in the end, honesty and integrity are what truly matter. And no matter how dark things get, there's always a way back to the light.